Welcome, everybody, to the Raad Life, the only talk radio show that takes you along with host and age explorer Raad on his continuing journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older. The Raad Life is brought to you this week by Your Home for a Lifetime, a company dedicated to empowering you to stay safely, independently, and comfortably in your own home. And now here is your host, Raad Gontos.
Raad Gontos. Where in the world is Raad Gontos? Hey, this is a new one for us here. We've had Rod show up a little late and be on the phone as he's driving into the studio, but this time somebody whacked you from behind, huh?
You know what? I think word's out on me, and
there's a hit on you.
As we get closer to election cycle, even though I'm not running for anything, I don't know. Maybe they're trying to take me out.
I think they're trying to silence you here. Yeah.
I don't know. I've been getting kind of hanging out with all kinds of characters, maybe, and inviting them to be guests on the show and stuff. So.
Well, you certainly brought one today here, a very famous character. We're proud to have with us here the man who almost knocked out Darrell Issa, but's going to do it this time here. Is it Colonel? You were Colonel Doug?
You can call me Doug, but it's Colonel Doug Applegate.
Colonel Doug Applegate. Well, welcome to the show here,
Good to have you in the studio, Doug.
Hey, I wish you were here, Rod.
I'm on my way, man. You're not going to get rid of me. I'll be sitting.
Soon you'll be seeing his face here. Well, while we're doing this, let's let the Colonel give us a little background of who he is, what happened the last time, and why he's running again.
Well, and Doug, also, let's dig in a little bit into the numbers, because I looked at them again this morning, and I could not believe how close it got.
Yeah, it was real close. So
yes, please
bring us up to date for those that may not be aware of you and the candidacy and the insurgency candidacy you ran against the once great and powerful Darrell Issa here in the 49th Congressional District. So give us some background.
Well, 3 years ago, more than 3 years ago, I started running for the California 49th. It was, at first, I didn't get the impression that people were too much interested in the race, given the fact that I was running against the wealthiest man on the Hill at the time and a 16-year incumbent. The closer we got to the primary, I still felt that way. Out of the blue, we got darn near 46% of the vote in the primary, and still people weren't too focused on the race. By the time we got past Labor Day, people finally started to wake up in Washington, D.C. and at the DCCC within the Democratic Party. And after really just 62 days, we came within a gnat's eyelash of beating a 16-year incumbent in a Republican district.
Yeah. So the obvious question is, I was just going to say two questions, and I'll let Rod jump in. Why did you run, and why do you think it was that close?
I ran because I didn't like the way our government's been using military force for quite some time. My last adventure in the Marine Corps Reserve was deployment to Iraq in 2006, one of the bloodiest years of that war. And I just was tired of Congress not stepping up and doing their duty and voting for the use of military force and war.
We're still operating under what, an authorization for use of military force, AUMF, that's how many years old now here?
Let's see, 17 years old.
17 years old.
Let's give people a little bit of background on this, because it's a very timely thing that we're talking about.
Yeah, right.
We're about to go in. We just did something very similar. Most people don't understand that is actually a function of Congress, that under unusual circumstances, that power, for very specific guidelines and parameters, was, through executive powers, I think it was, given to the president, but that it is the role of Congress to basically engage military power. Is that correct, Doug?
Absolutely correct. And I think you're going to learn that there was a lot of pushback on the most recent military strike in Syria. General Jim Mattis, who I've served with, wanted the administration to go to Congress for authorization for that strike before
So let me show off my once great political science skills here when I went to the University of Michigan and studied all this stuff and thought I was going to be a political scientist before I got into radio. Look out.
Go ahead, Paul.
Obviously, this has been something that's been eroding for a long time since World War II. We've had how many wars, as Rand Paul will point out, how many wars have we fought without any sort of authorization from Congress? Only the most, the Vietnam War was off of the Gulf of Tonkin resolution that they expanded to be, how many year war there. The Korean War was a police action. The invasion of Iraq and all that stuff was, authorized under this very limited authorization to use military force. And in the 70s, Nixon was famous.
Authorized under false pretenses and a lie. I mean,
well, yeah, right, exactly. And then in the 70s, what you're talking about is the War Powers Act that Congress passed in frustration, saying that the president has to come to Congress within he can react to a strike, yes, he can do something, but he has to come to Congress within a short period of time to continue that and to explain it. And that's something that's never happened, I don't think, since that War Powers Act was run. Has it?
That's
Colonel?
correct. And one of the problems with that is Congress can't just sit on their hands under the War Powers Act. They must force
I thought that
the
was
president.
their job description.
Yeah.
Well, Raad, you're absolutely right. It's the only job I've ever seen anywhere in the world where you can keep your job by getting absolutely nothing done.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? And that has been. I'm like Rod, probably a more, one of these refused to state, but I was originally a liberal Republican when I was raised, and they got kicked out of the party. So I don't know what I am. I'm not quite a liberal Democrat, but I'm somewhere in between. And the people like the Libertarian wing of the Republican Party constantly rails against this. That, wait a minute, Congress, it isn't just that the president has done this, not this president, all these presidents in modern history. It gets worse and worse and worse as we go along. But Congress doesn't even try to push back. Congress doesn't even stand up and say, hey, wait a minute, we have this power.
So what has been able to sustain that abnormality?
Yeah,
so
right.
long?
That's a good question.
And Doug kind of opened the door a little bit just earlier about pushback that would happen on the most recent thing, and I believe that pushback wasn't even like partisan. I think it was on both sides to a certain degree, some maybe more than others. But the thing about it that really fascinates me is we always have these conversations, and it's just like taken for granted that they must be true, including things like broad strokes of in national security. Okay, and I mean that is probably in my mind the most abused term to justify action.
Oh, you can do anything under that term. Yeah, exactly. Under the guise of national security, the presidents, not just this one, but most recent presidents have tried to say we can do just about anything. We can tap your phones. We can, we can get warrants. We can do all sorts of crazy things here. We can suppress information. We can go torture people. Honest to God.
So Doug, let me ask you this. I mean, Paul asked it, and you kind of answered it, but I want to delve a little bit deeper. I mean, you were obviously you were service for the country. You served. Your professional path is of being of service. But what actually made you engage in wanting to put your head into the political sphere? Because a lot of people, especially coming off what happened with Iraq and what we know today about that whole mess, a lot of people would say, I'm not going to put my family through this.
No.
I'm not, I'm going to find other ways to be of service. And you were. So what made you want to go there?
The 49th is a very unique district. Actually, to cut right to the chase, the largest demographic is not party. It's not even gender. The largest demographic in the 49th are veterans, their partners, spouses, children, grandchildren, extended family. In every poll that we've run over the last 3 years, we always ask an additional question. Do you live with a veteran, active duty, or are you a veteran or active duty? It's always been somewhere around 62 to 64%.
Wow. And that's because the district, for those that don't know, starts down in San Diego, North San Diego County, runs through basically Pendleton and Oceanside and all that, and now includes South Orange County as they redrew it a few years ago, right?
It goes up to Ladera Ranch, San Juan Capistrano, Dana Point, San Clemente, and then all the way down through UCSD and 1 Street in La Jolla with a great view.
Okay. All right. So
that is a big district for anybody who's familiar with that.
You know, it's not as big as some Texas districts that are gerrymandered, so you could actually go from East Texas to West Texas.
Yeah.
But it takes an hour to drive from the south end to the north end, and that's with no traffic.
And the district really, since it took on South Orange County, has really changed dramatically, I would say, because the typical North San Diego kind of, it's still a Republican district, I would think overwhelmingly, maybe not even overwhelmingly anymore, but our needs in South Orange County are different. That's where I live, as opposed to North San Diego. Isn't there a real difference in the two counties now here?
Well, not as far as veterans.
Yeah.
And once again, if you wanted to give a rough number of registered voters, it's probably around 360 to 375,000. And
it's a very engaged district too, right? Because I mean that's about the count that you guys had last election cycle with you and Darrell Issa. I mean it was like 300. I want to say 350,000 or 365 or something like that, wasn't it?
It was. We had an 80% turnout,
Wow.
and
Wow.
it was roughly 312,000 votes.
All right. So whatever you did, you scared the heck out of Darrell Issa, and he shocked the world when the richest man in Congress, who'd been there for 16 years, who was the chairman of the House and House and Waste Committee? I forgot which one House Oversight.
House Oversight,
Yeah.
and then he timed out and he went to the Judicial Committee and was the I believe the ranking member over there.
Yeah.
But he didn't surprise us and my staff because we knew around early last spring in 2017 that Darrell was not going to run again, and I actually announced it that he definitely wasn't going to run on October 17th of 2017 because he had been getting bad news in the polls. He was trailing us from immediately after the 2016 count ended, the last and closest one in the country, because polling wise, Darrell was never ahead again.
Wow.
And he had some other things that are a bit more salacious that didn't really come to pass because a certain dissolution was settled in Dayton, Ohio, but we needn't get into that.
Okay, well, I'll leave that mystery unopened here.
And before we move on, though, Paul, you brought something up, and I'd like to see if Doug would weigh in on this. The assumption, and we all know what happens when you make assumptions, right?
Right.
The assumption is that area of Orange County is dyed-in-the-wool Republican.
Yeah, right. It's where you and I both live. Right.
Right, but I would like to see, because my impression on it, and it's not something that is new, my impression on this has been something just tracking things for the last few years, is that we're looking at something more realistically of an even split, 30-30-30, of that voter base, where it's growingly independent or non-party affiliated, and is shrinking on the GOP side, and possibly you could say at the best maybe like a slight gain or maybe sort of a stagnant number count on the Democratic side. So I'm just curious because I don't know that any candidate, regardless which party they are running under, which we all understand has to be a major party that you're running under, but I don't know that any candidate can ignore that reality if, in fact, that is true, Doug. So what do you think? What is the composition these days?
You're talking about independent voters, the growth of the independent voters.
I'm just saying the assumption is, that Orange County is a Republican county. Well, it went to Hillary last time. Yeah. South Orange County
First
is
time since FDR was president back in the 40s. Yeah, exactly.
So are we experiencing a paradigm shift in the voter base to where people are maybe more open, likely to be voting on issues, on candidates versus party lines?
In certain parts of the 49th, I would say yes. Rod, you and I have both lived in San Clemente, about last 10 years?
Yeah.
And
we've been there since '87. Yeah.
Okay, longer. And I've been in the district since '81, working or living, and it's certainly changed. I would add the caveat that certainly South Orange County has never really been campaigned by any Democrat until recently.
Yeah, right.
And that's where we really lost the race against Darrell Issa because we beat Darrell Issa in the San Diego portion, which is about 75% of the district, by 6.5%. But we didn't get any county party help whatsoever in South Orange County. No door hangers, no Go TV, get out the vote effort by the Democratic Party, either nationally or locally. So what I've seen is if you go up to Los Angeles County and you have your no party preference, they are generally former Democrats who lean left.
Right.
If you get into the 49th, what you generally have are former Republicans who lean right. And there's a subtle difference, but Rod, I think you're right. I think people are focusing on the issues, and that's really, no matter where you want to put me on the political scale, that's what I ran on: issues of education, single-payer health care, and clean energy at a much quicker pace than even Sacramento likes to talk about.
And can I raise one other thing, because I just have to ask since you're here. People assume that military voters are more conservative and are much more attached to the Republican Party because of its warlike image, its image of strength and projecting American forces around the world here. And somehow the Democrats seem to still struggle from their leftover 60s anti-war kind of image here, although I think that's changed. But so why are you a Democrat, and why did you run as a Democrat?
Well, first of all, Democrats leave chips on the table by not trying to talk to the veteran community.
Yeah, all the time.
That assumption has cost Democrats elections for the last 40 years.
Right.
And you can't assume just because someone's a veteran, they're going to vote any particular way. Now, Marines are a little bit unique because we're a different brother and sisterhood. Marines are going to vote for Marines because we have a concept of leave no one behind.
Yeah, right.
So I think that that generalization only costs candidates and political parties elections.
Because they assume, why
Correct.
bother?
That's right.
Right. Well, I applaud what you did. I think the whole world was shocked. Now what does it look like? Because, and I don't wish to be difficult, and I don't want to start a friendly food fight here amongst your fellow Democrats, but now we've gone to the other way where we couldn't get anybody to run as a Democrat in any of these districts, anybody significant, and nobody would even pay attention. The party wouldn't pay attention. The public wouldn't pay attention. Why bother? It's a Republican district. Now we have a plethora. Now we've got an abundance of candidates running in this district all of a sudden.
Well, we do have an abundance of candidates who didn't lift a finger in 2016 to throw out Darrell Issa.
Right.
Because I can guarantee you, I've been pouring through my list of volunteers and contributors, and none of the candidates that are currently running lifted a single finger to get rid of Darrell Issa.
Because they didn't think it could be done.
I don't know why they didn't lift a single finger. They all said that they had disliked Mr. Issa for quite some time, and it was close from the primary forward. And if I would have had one more week, I could have beaten Darrell Issa. If I could have gotten one of the major newspapers, the UT down in San Diego, as well as the Register up in Orange County. Now, when I talked to their editorial board, they all but told me they weren't going to endorse Darrell, and they expected to endorse me. Both of them went for Issa again. So when you look at the margin of the loss, 1,621 votes.
That's all it was, 1,621 votes out of 300,000?
312,000.
Wow.
That's correct.
Wow.
0.6.
Anything could have happened in that kind of race. Well, okay, so here we are, and we're trying to figure out where we go forward. When does the Democratic primary, it's June, right?
June 5th, Tuesday.
And explain to us, because here's the fear that many of us have in all these Republican races. Rod doesn't like this when I talk about this, but we've gone from no candidates to too many candidates, and we could all knock each other out, where you still get Republicans sneaking through because the Democrats split the vote too many ways. Is that possible? Probable? How do you respond to that?
I think I'm going to win the primary, and it doesn't make any difference who comes in second come November. I think that I've already got 154,000 people that have cast a vote for our campaign and the principles we stand for, and I'm in this thing to win it. And Marines don't retreat.
Well, that I believe.
You know, the
Raad is here. Oh my goodness, he walked into the studio.
I walked in the studio and I heard
You don't look banged up or anything. Here, you look like you made it.
I'm good. I'm
All right.
good. My car's fine. But poor Prius behind me. But he shouldn't be on his phone. But anyway, I think, Paul, what you were asking though is an interesting reality of life these days, and it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you are on. I think we're experiencing this situation where everything is such in flux right now.
Yeah.
That the institutionalized party line, the normal playbook doesn't apply anymore. You know, it's been thrown out the window.
Well, Donald Trump certainly proved that. Nobody predicted that
You're
one.
going to give the guy, you got to give the guy some credit. I mean, the chaos, out of chaos comes order side of me, the contrarian side of me, says, that playbook's kind of stale. We need to change it now. We have to break the system in order to fix it. No, I don't agree with that. That's a little extreme. However, I think what's happening is you've got generational shift. You've got changes that are driving people to be more engaged and involved. Some of them have a, shall we say, more sophisticated approach at having how to do that because they've either done it in some form or the other, public service, volunteerism, serving on boards, whatever it is, being in the military, and some are not. And so there's a bit of chaos. The interesting thing is it's more involved democracy to a certain extent, and I think every party is going to have to learn.
They got to earn the votes.
They got to earn the votes, and they got to do it on issues. And you can't basically just tell me you're wearing a red or blue jersey and eating at the same free trough, a public trough, and basically I'm going to vote for you because with the color of your jersey. Doesn't work anymore.
Well, let me bring up one other thing, and I'm not trying to embarrass you, Colonel, but I know that they did have the Democratic, whatever they call it, the where you all go down and appeal for the party's support, and in that district they couldn't decide, right? They was split in between. I don't know who these people are that show up for these party congresses, conventions. I'm assuming they're insiders and people have been long affiliated with the party, but so far the party hasn't picked you or anybody in the district, right?
Well, the corporate establishment
for endorsements
of the Democratic Party hasn't picked anyone to endorse, but that isn't going to make any difference come June 5th.
Okay. All right,
I mean, the way the California is set up, it's the top two winners in the primary, and so
right. But I'm just saying the party itself was reported to be kind of a messy Congress. I think it was down in San Diego, and the candidates in this congressional district and others came forward and tried to get the parties to pick somebody out of this pack of candidates, and the party couldn't. They couldn't. They didn't even vote. They didn't even support Dianne Feinstein in her rebid.
But you got to ask yourself, and I'm not picking on the Democratic Party.
Yes, you are.
No,
You're always picking on the
Democratic Party. No, it's not. It's on both sides. And both sides. And I before I walked in, and Doug, you were saying that in where we live, or down South County, the majority of those that are independent or that are non-declared are Republican or conservative that lean right. Yeah, I'm one of them. That's the only party I was ever registered to, and I abandoned it a long time ago because it stopped representing that fiscally conservative, social liberal, tolerant kind of thing. And you got more libertarian in you, but it's the same scenario. And so I think these parties probably are not able to decide because they're still trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. The game has changed, and I'm still trying to fit my old playbook into the new arena, and it doesn't work anymore. You're not be able to pick because you got to engage people now on issues. You got everything. We say this on the station all the time. All news is local, right, Paul? Right. So
Tip O'Neill's famous quote.
Yeah, this top down. Okay, you and I disagree on the last election in terms of maybe you're leaning towards where I was thinking back in the day, but I honestly believe that Hillary lost for a number of reasons. One of which was basically not showing up at certain places.
Oh yeah, clearly self-anointed, don't have to go there. Yeah, that was.
And so take that and make it on a smaller play.
Like Doug's saying, you don't even go after the veterans vote because they're not yours, or you don't
campaign in South County because it's pretty much we've just given that up.
Right.
It's a foregone conclusion. You know what's interesting about that, Doug? I may have shared this with you before, right? In 2000, I think it was 4 or 5. There was a report that was done by a combined effort from UCI and UCLA called "The Changing Face of Orange County." I'm sure you know it, right? I mean, it sits on my desk. I should probably like highlight the friggin' thing. Right?
Yeah.
And I remember telling people that are friends of mine that were delegates in the Democratic Party back when that report came out. We went to the unveiling of the report and blah blah blah, right? Some of which we probably both know. And I said to them, I said, okay, so let's look at this. You guys are heralding this whole thing about emerging minorities and you know, how they're becoming more politically astute and aware players in Orange County and in California as a whole. And you're focusing on the Arab American community in Anaheim, and you're focusing on the Latino community primarily in Santa Ana and how those are concentrations. And then you had this whole report about the issues that emerging minorities have, which is level of education usually is not, you know, across the board high on the higher level, and the economics, the money, right? And I said, yet your report shows one anomaly, to use a Star Trek term, right? That basically in one part of the county, the emerging minority quote unquote representatives possess both higher education and deeper pockets, and that's South County. I said, what are you guys doing, basically not establishing any beachheads, you know, in South County? And that was 2005.
Well, he's a Marine. He knows how to take the beach here. You know,
no,
that's what they do.
I appreciate the fact that he is a known entity. And there's a lot of good candidates. I'm not knocking anybody who wants to be of public service. In this Trump era, for somebody to actually stick their neck out and want to be of public service, my hat's off to them, honestly, right? But there's also a certain level of smarts that's involved. And these parties, from my perspective, I'm looking at a candidate. I'm looking at a candidate and where they stand on certain issues relevant to things that impact me. I'm not looking at what color jersey they're wearing. That's secondary.
So what are the issues, Doug, in the county here? Obviously, you said that you don't like.
We're a mess down there. No.
I mean, so what are the issues in the district that not just the national issues? Yes, maybe we're using force too freely and without asking Congress, as you talked about. Specifically in the district, what are other issues that people want to hear?
Look, the federal issues I see as really a constant over the last several decades, and they've only gotten worse.
Right.
One is health care, and I've always been a Medicare for all, single payer, and I'm a 4-decade trial attorney. I can't believe how Democrats negotiate up on the Hill. They go into an adversarial process, and they have a pie. And the first thing they do is they say, we want to be fair to everybody, so we only want half of the pie. That's not the way I negotiate. And then the Republicans say, no, I want the whole pie. So we're going to end up with a quarter because they want to split what the Democrats never claimed.
You wonder why we're so fractured and we're so like and what is the word? Entrenched?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Extremes.
And you know, what I found is when I started running 3 years ago, I was told, oh, don't get close to health care.
Yeah.
Now, I've been litigating in the healthcare arena for 4 decades. I have a hard time saying 4 decades. It doesn't seem like I've been doing it that long.
That's right.
But
40 is the new 20.
It is, thank you. I wish I could see 40 again.
Yeah.
But one of the things that people don't realize is the cost of living in the 49th or in Southern California makes healthcare a major concern, just as it is throughout the rest of the country.
Like housing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you move on to the next issue, and that is education. I got through 7 years of college, through law school, and I owed $5,000.
Yeah.
National defense loan. And I just thought that's the way it should be. Yeah. Did I have to work my way through college? Yes. Did I go to a junior college? Absolutely. But that was nothing. And now I talk to young attorneys. They owe $100 grand or more. I talk to my peers whose kids are getting out of college, and they owe 30, 40, 50 grand. The millennials are short. They have to bear a burden of like a 90-pound rucksack when they get out of college. And then job prospects are nothing like they were in the 80s or the 90s.
Oh, no.
And yet we want them to be.
And we're not putting the energy in retraining for the jobs that are
Exactly.
possibilities.
And we want these people to
Exactly.
be good consumers to take over for the declining baby boomers who are now on the downside of that consumption curve.
Hey, the baby
Burners.
burners.
I think that's what we
the
are.
baby boomers.
They're in
want-
Coachella, actually. The baby burners are in Coachella.
They are, but they're walled off. You know that. And that's not because I went there. My kids went there and told me, hey, Dad, you know, your generation was there, but they kept us separate and apart. from
except they really?
Except they don't call it walled off.
Oh, my goodness.
At Coachella, now that it's become more institutionalized, that area is the VIP lounge.
Yeah, right.
That's where you have to
Oh,
pay
okay.
for the access, right?
Pay for the access.
I see. They have depend stations there.
Defense stations.
But you know, the baby boomers now want the millennials who get out of college with a huge debt to pay more into Social Security. So because the baby boomers don't have pensions anymore,
Right.
and they're looking
Big
at
problem.
a very stark reality in their quote unquote golden years.
Talk about it all the time in this show.
All the time.
We're going to live longer than any generation, and yet we're less prepared than any generation.
So what are the top? Let's just take 5 and then we'll narrow it down. What are the top 5 issues that you believe are critical? And I don't want to go to the national level because let's keep it local, right?
What's going to get people to turn out? What do they want?
What are the 5 issues that we're dealing with? I have my feelings on certain things and down in that district.
Toll road.
Well,
Go
no,
ahead.
that's well. I would phrase it differently. I would phrase it as affordable alternative transportation that is dependable. That is actually.
You mean mass transit?
Oh, ouch.
Yes,
Don't say that.
but mass transit can be
You're right.
the trolley in San Clemente that runs all the time, that provides everybody over the age of 50. My father is 84 years old. He's dreading like hell, basically sitting down for his driving license test again in October, right? I mean, it very very easily he may not get it. And then my mother is close to 80. And they live up on Salvador at the top of the hill. How the heck do they get around independently, right? I mean, I'm not talking about mass transit like let's put buses everywhere, right?
You're the transportation. Sorry, so that's your assumption. I want to hear Doug's assumption.
Okay.
Doug's in
well,
the
no,
district.
but you're the one who brought up toll road.
I know, but I want to hear Doug's assumption. What's he seeing in the district? What's motivating people? Yeah, I know for you it's the toll road in San Clemente, but is that
It's not.
district-wide?
What I was saying to you is you threw in the toll road.
Wow.
In the district, we have a demographic age bracket. We have people that are raised in those towns, that were born in those towns, that cannot afford to live in those towns. We have a lack, in my mind, of sort of entrepreneurial engagement and incubation of stuff to help these people to possibly be able to afford. Real estate prices aren't going to go down. There's
hope
only
not.
so much coastal California. People are all going to want to get in. Boomers aren't, and neither should they, leave their homes before they want to. And if they're healthier longer, can stay in those houses that are paid off and use them for a reverse mortgage later on, have at it.
So you're telling
But
me
there are issues that we are dealing with in this district.
you're telling me your priority list. I want to hear his.
Yeah.
Okay, look. San Onofre is on the top of the list. And people are finally starting to realize it's not a good idea to put almost 4 million tons of spent fuel rods in the ground.
In metal containers
And
near
they're-
the ocean.
And they're already having, and shorthand wise, they're all already having problems with the containers.
Right, already, yeah. it's
Okay.
true.
And I like to say, I've been running in this race for 3 years, and even conservatives, I like to call it, they have the surfer's exception.
Yeah, right.
I'm a conservative, but I'm a surfer, so I want to do something
Yeah,
about
the
San
Dana
Onofre.
the Dana Rohrabacher Republicans.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
So what do you think should happen with that?
Well, you got to find a better place. There is no perfect place, but it's got to get out of the middle of 12 million Southern Californians. Because if you draw a Fukushima exclusion zone around it, that would take out trillions of real estate.
Yeah.
Well,
Think about
it
that.
affects everything up to Long Beach. I looked
Yeah.
at the circle one time and it was like,
That's right.
Yeah, and going back to the toll road situation, like selling the toll road as an escape route. I'm like, where are you going exactly? Paso Robles, because you won't be clearing Long Beach on any form of transportation. Yeah.
That's right. And getting back to what Rod was talking about,
Right.
it's affordable housing, because you're absolutely right. I've been talking about people whose kids are not going to be able to stay in the towns where they grew up.
My kids, yeah.
They can't even do that now when they inherit from their parents because
They can't sustain that property.
They can't sustain that property. I've seen that happen, and it's gentrification. It hit Laguna Beach. I lived in Laguna Beach for 10 years when I first resigned my regular commission in the Marine Corps, went down and started my practice in Santa Ana, did civil rights work. And I was living in Laguna Beach.
Not too bad.
Life was large.
Not too bad, right?
And I watched it change. And it's rolling south. And San Clemente used to be a very affordable place to live. Not anymore. And we're going to get additional gentrification. So you need to do something about affordable housing.
And
I think
what
one
can
of the
be
keys,
done? Go ahead. What
well,
can be done?
One of the keys is that what happened up in Sacramento just this week with the Senate bill proposed by Weiner about mass transit. Well, it didn't have an affordable housing component. And you have to have infill. In other words, you have to build a higher density housing close to the mass transit. Mass transit is going to be quieter than it ever was with technology. It's going to be largely electric and powered by renewables.
So what do you say to people, and I'm picking San Clemente specifically, but what do you say to people in San Clemente that when you start talking about affordable housing, or you talk about high density, or you talk about something that is not single family kind of quaint coastal California.
Them's fighting words down there.
What do you say to that? Because I know people that the minute the word affordable housing comes out, you might as well say projects in their mind, right? And those are fights. I personally think there are alternative, sensitive opportunities even in those communities. We're not talking about 200 units, but enough to basically make a little bit of an improvement. And then transportation, like you're saying, transportation charters, it could be up in Laguna Niguel. It could be a little bit further out, but still local.
Everything that you just said is the reality on the ground.
Yeah.
But people have to recognize that if you continue at the arc that we're on with gentrifying all of the living space within the beach communities, your communities are going to change.
Yeah.
They are not going to have the same character that they have now. And it's important to me that that we don't lose what we all have come to love about living in Southern California, living in real beach towns.
Well, the quality of life component, that's sometimes hard to quantify, but we all instinctively know. Okay, so we got affordable housing, we got San Onofre.
Can I stop you for 1 second, though? And I think it's very interesting what you said. I don't disagree with what you're saying about San Onofre, but I never hear any of my neighbors talk about San Onofre. Nobody ever talks about San Onofre. I live in Ladera. I live in Ladera, basically.
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
He thinks it's far away.
Okay, but you're north of the Ortega, so
yeah, right.
North of the Ortega.
Like somehow that's going to stop it or something.
That was a joke. All right.
It's like the Hatfields and the McCoys on the side of Ortega.
I love Ladera Ranch. I got to tell you something. The last time I was running, I was talking to people down in San Diego, and when I used to just say songs because, in San Clemente, we know the difference between the tsunami sirens and the song sirens.
Yeah,
okay?
right.
And so everybody talks about songs, and it seems like you go have a beer in San Clemente, that at least one guy on one of your sides either worked or is still working at songs.
Yeah.
Right.
I go down to San Diego.
There's only two nuclear power plants in California, and that was one of them or something. I think there was one other one up in San Luis or something.
Well, there's El Diablo, and there's another reactor. It's just escaping me right now. But
not many in California.
Not many, but hey, wherever they put them in California, they're too close to the ocean and they're too close to a fault line.
Because they got to cool them.
They're
need water.
consistent.
They need water to cool them, so they put them on the ocean.
Look, we're going to have this. We're going to have it not to the same extent, but we're going to have the same dialogue on desalination plants, right? We're going to have the same dialogue on the Neptune thing in Huntington Beach. We're going to have this. I mean, this
Poseidon,
is the nature of California.
You got the wrong Greek god here. It's Poseidon.
Poseidon. Sorry, did I go Roman? I went Roman instead of Greek, or vice versa. Okay. So what else? What else, Doug? I mean,
affordable housing.
Affordable housing for sure, and I think that's a big problem that is statewide. It may even be nationwide.
I think it's huge, and again, it's one of those. I see everybody sticking their head in the sand and saying, "We'll talk about that some other day."
Well, the other thing, you have to go back, even though it's also a national issue. You have to go back to education, because I've been thinking about this for a long time. Not only the unfairness to the millennials, but what is coming with artificial intelligence, robotics, and automation is this. We have to recognize that there is no point in which any population of the future is going to be able to stop being retrained and educated further.
Amen.
Otherwise, you're dead.
You know what's really crazy about this? I was born and raised overseas, and I had an opportunity to be in different countries. Okay, the fascinating thing about that particular thing, human nature anywhere has a resistance for change. I mean, that's just an assumption.
Huge.
Nobody wants to go out of their comfort zone and do anything. But there are places that actually encourage and embed a philosophy of embracing growth, personal growth, skill growth, reaching for newer things constantly. And you see it in certain countries where it transitions all the way to aging and elderly populations.
You just defined Southern California for most people.
Well, that's
Constantly
exactly
changing,
right. And we are in a state that the rest of the country looks at as a bunch of fruits, nuts
Yeah.
and fruits, because we basically are innovative. We reach out. We rethink. Some kid
We're always
basically
changing.
decides, I can't put my skateboard in my locker, so I'm going to make one that's half the size. I mean, all of this stuff that's very innovative. And yet there's nothing that is conscious, I think, at a leadership position that encourages that.
No.
And to your point, the future is not going to be friendly for that kind of entrenched, non-changing mindset.
Can I
Let
just-
me
Go
let me
ahead.
talk about something that is a ray of hope.
Okay.
And that's why I brought
We
this
like
up.
that. What's the ray of hope?
This is it. In the 49th,
Okay.
it's either, and I apologize to both of these fine educational institutions, but it's either Maricos or Palomar,
Okay.
offers a 4-year degree in biotech manufacturing, BM.
Wow.
And it's at the cost. It's a 4-year degree, and
Yeah.
it's at the cost of 1 year at a UC school.
Wow.
And you can get out of that program and go straight to work for the biotech companies that are in the southern part of the 49th, Biotech Beach,
Right.
50% of the
Right,
biotechs.
right.
And the real hope for true, efficient health care, single payer and
Yeah.
Medicare for all, $80K a year
Wow.
Wow.
starting.
And
Now those people are bench workers in labs. But even those people that could have a great start without the huge debt, they're going to have to accept that they're going to have to retrain, reschool, and government and business needs to combine to create that path of education. You're absolutely right. We have fallen behind on an international level with our educational system. We've said, hey, K through 12, that'll get you a job at the auto assembly line.
Right.
And that's where I grew up outside of Dayton, Ohio.
Oh, there you go. That's where
people-
I'm from Michigan. I'm from,
Okay. All right.
and that's why the point I'll make, and I say this to everybody who'll listen. Why did everybody vote for Trump? Why are they so mad? It's been a decline in living standards for a long time that both parties ignored back in the rural and the Rust Belt. And
A genuine, real concern for those people, by the way.
but
I mean,
the
it's
lie,
not that it's
the lie
it's
that they still want to hold on to, my friends, my relatives, people I grew up with that still worked in those factories, is that they're coming back. The lie is that you could. The miracle was after World War II, you could graduate from high school with no skill, and you could get a middle-class job in a mill, in a mine, in a factory. Those days are gone. You're not going to get high-paid jobs for low skill or no skill labor. Not going to happen anymore. And that's the reality.
And that's no surprise to me and to someone who has not taken a single shot at the Buckeyes from Michigan. You must have gone to Michigan State.
I went to Michigan. I did go to U of M.
Oh,
Didn't you see the
okay.
U of M sticker
Yeah,
up
you
there?
have stickers up
exactly.
there.
Right there.
I try not to see those things. I don't say that word. That's that team up north.
That's the M word. Right?
That's
M-word,
the M word.
exactly.
I don't say that. But I was not surprised to learn that Montgomery, Ohio, Dayton, Ohio, is the epicenter of the opioid epidemic.
Yeah.
It's geographic depression. Most people know those jobs aren't coming back. The American dream is not coming back.
But Trump's lie
the
was that
Midwest.
I'm going to put up a
But see-
barrier. We're going
Right.
to force them all to
But
come
see,
back.
There's the abdication of leadership.
Oh yeah, and
Okay,
playing to their
across the
pandering
board.
to their
Across the-
problem.
but
yeah.
across the board, okay. Whether you want to talk about it at the supervisor level, with the homeless issue, you want to talk about it at the national level. There is a systemic abdication of leadership problem in this country.
Because nobody wants to tell the truth. Because you get elected. Hillary
I'd
famously.
rather you continue to live the denial
Yes.
that you are somehow, as a United States citizen, entitled to a job that requires you to not retrain and grow your skills as the industry and the world around you changes, because somehow that is entitled to you by birth, and I, as a leader or somebody who's asking me for your vote, is not going to cross that line and tell you the reality is different.
Or move.
Okay?
Or
But-
maybe
but-
you have
but you're
to
not doing
move.
anybody a favor, and you're definitely not leading. I mean, these people, if anybody, in one breath, the companies were bringing back, were reinvesting in America right after the election, right? And in the second breath, when you looked at the detail, the reinvestment in America was basically automation and robotics.
Exactly.
Which made for less people working.
And it's been headed that way for decades.
Absolutely,
right.
absolutely. That's the nature of
But you
nature
win.
of progress.
But you win votes when you go back to those areas, as Doug and I both know, and you say, "I'm going to bring it back to the way it was." You don't have to change.
Are we going to see that
We have-
again, or was it just the nature of this particular
Oh,
election
no,
cycle?
that's
and the
systemic.
age and the demographic. We're dealing with people of a certain generation.
That's systemic
trying
back
to
there
hold
for a while.
on to.
Well, you guys are both talking at different ends of the bone.
Yes, right.
Well, but that's
Well,
he,
but
he
I
was
agree
really
with you.
gnawing on that end.
Yeah. Look, I think that millennials are different. I look at the millennials and I say, can I really believe that they're going to be different? Because I look at when I grew up outside of Dayton, Ohio, or I can tell when Paul was growing up
Suburban
up
Detroit,
in
yeah.
Michigan. I was at the tail end of the Vietnam generation. My number got pulled. I didn't have to go. I ended up doing what I never thought I would have done in high school, and I joined the Marine Corps. That's a whole different story. I was shanghaied. I didn't know what was going on. It's a gang. When I woke up, I was indoctrinated. It was the Stockholm syndrome.
Yes.
But,
I was right. I was right there too. My number was about to be called. I don't know what your age. I just turned 62, and I was about to get called. But of course, I went to college, and I thought, well, that'll defer it long enough, and it did. So I didn't have to go or even think of going. But
I think the millennials are starting at a different level. In other words, they're sort of standing on the shoulders of the civil rights
Yeah, the baby boomers.
and
Yes.
the Vietnam generation.
We fought
And I
hard.
always thought, the Vietnam demonstrations really didn't have a big impact until the college deferments went away. And the people that were on the poor side of town weren't the only ones going and dying in Vietnam.
Exactly. As long as the poor kids were
Sadly-
dying, nobody
sadly,
cared.
That is,
right.
that is the world we live in.
When suburban
That is
kids
when
started
attention
getting
sta-
called up and having to go, that's when everybody revolted. Exactly.
But
agree
now,
with that.
it's
Well, look at the school shooting thing, right? I mean, it's the same scenario play out.
it's a little bit different there because those aren't the poor schools that are getting shot up.
But what I'm saying is, until that recent one in Florida, and the optics on that changed, and you now had these very like suburban white youth that are now basically standing out and saying what they're saying. The whole the dynamic changed on that discussion.
I think there is, just as I think there's hope for a change in our education course, I think millennials could be different than any other young generation. If they will get out and vote, which is always what people ask, but are they going to get out and vote? I think they can really change the course.
I'm actually astounded at the fact that a lot of people didn't know this, and including me, to be honest, is that the fact that when you turned 16 in the state of California, you could actually pre-register to vote, and the fact that
I didn't know
people
that.
are actually doing that now as a byproduct of, I think probably the school shootings had a lot to do with it, but people are engaged and active, and I agree. I've said this a long time, Doug, on the show, is that I believe there's commonalities between baby boomers and millennials. The grandparents and the grandkids. I think one is more electronically driven in terms of how they execute their engagement and civic involvement. The other one was more in person, and they all have. But I see parallels. I really do. And when I started seeing kids basically pre-register ages 16, I mean, that must throw the fear of God into the establishment of political parties on both sides.
It should.
You know what throws the fear of God into me is that we've run out of time. We haven't even touched the surface. We got to get Doug to come back another time here.
You know
'cause
what?
We've run out of time.
Any time, and I do want to just give you an opportunity. Where can people find out more about you? How can they get involved?
Well, it's applegateforcongress.com. No spaces, FOR, no number 4. It's been that way for 3 years, and that's the best way to get in touch with us.
And
Absolutely.
how can people get involved?
You can get involved because what we've been doing is it's very much we've got a cutting-edge messaging program. The big problem with political emails, has become going into the junk folder.
Sure, of course.
We're beating the algorithms. We've been reaching out for about the last 6 weeks to 200,000 geo-fenced voters inside the 49.
The 49.
And I can guarantee you this: nobody has the technology that we've had.
Well, and people can
we've put it
volunteer.
out.
I saw on your website that people can volunteer and be involved and hold meetings and so forth. And I encourage everybody to do that because I think it's I do this for anybody, any candidate that's running. I encourage anybody who has an interest to get engaged. This is a right and a privilege that I did not have growing up somewhere else or born somewhere else, and it's something that's very unique to this country. So become part of that
Don't take it for granted.
Don't take it for granted.
Hey, we got to go because we got somebody waiting for next shows outside here. So,
Doug, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, Rod.
And I'll have you back on again.
I hope so. I've enjoyed this very much, and you're right. We haven't touched on any of the issues down in South County, and just so I can give a little bit of a teaser.
Yeah.
I'm against the toll road in South Orange County,
Oh.
and always have been. Actually, you and I met at a Starbucks in San Clemente last May.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing we were talking about.
Doug was one of the first people that I ever reached out to that actually came out very, very much and has been steadfast on his position against the toll road, which is not the right solution for anything down there.
Go get him, Doug. We got to get going here.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Doug.
Thanks, Rod.
All right.
You have been listening to the Raad Life Radio Show with your host and age explorer, Raad Gontos, brought to you on the one and only octalkradio.net. Join us again next week as we continue our journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older.